I was directed to a list of questions for atheists that supposedly we can't answer. So I'm going to do my best to try to answer them today. They're fairly short, so I don't plan on getting too deep into them. Hey, that's, accurate.
Today I'm going to present to you 11 questions that atheists cannot answer. The first question: how do you explain why the early Christian martyrs preached for decades saying they saw the risen Christ?
The book that claims the resurrection occurred happens to be the same book that claims the martyrs saw the resurrection. It would be like asking, how do I explain all the Ewoks who saw C-3PO float in his wicker throne if he wasn't some kind of god? I guess I could, but nah. This is not to say that people didn't preach the gospel back then, and yes, occasionally were persecuted because of it, mostly known from the Acts of the Martyrs, which has, let's say, varying reliability. But the known martyrs were people who heard the stories and continued to pass them on. The only evidence of the martyrdom of those who claim to have seen Christ after his death is from the Bible itself.
2. How do you explain the rise of Christianity to between 5 and 6 million by 313 when it was finally legalized from such humble roots?
There are a few reasons. It preached a popular message. Missionaries and other believers went around converting people with the claim that no matter who you are or your station in life, you will get a grand afterlife just for believing. And, quite frankly, life was not that great in those days. Plus, it had the advantage that it was already based on an existing religious heritage, Judaism, which had a deity that supposedly took a more active role in its disciples and followers, but with the added benefit that you weren't limited by birth and anybody could join up. It has to be noted, though, that popular doesn't always mean right.
3. What powered inflation of the universe?
I don't know for sure. There are several key pieces of evidence to point to the beginning of inflation, but yes, I don't know for sure what powered the expansion yet, so I can't answer it with any kind of accuracy. One of the proposed ideas is tied to particle theory. Basically, modern particle theory suggests that at high energy levels there should exist forms of matter that create repulsive gravity. When the universe was extremely small with high amounts of energy, this repulsive gravity would be the propulsion mechanism for the initial expansion. But to be honest, this is way beyond my knowledge. Yeah, I'll give him that. But apparently, people much smarter than me have done research that supports this idea. So yes, this is one question I can't answer. But giving the response, I don't know, is an honest reply. And that doesn't mean we should just slot God into the gaps of our knowledge. And even if we don't know where something came from, that doesn't mean we can't try to understand it. Our ancestors understood fluid dynamics long before learning how water was comprised of hydrogen and oxygen.
4. Why are humans spiritual?
Okay, to start off, saying spiritual is kind of a muddy term. It could mean a number of things, so hopefully I'll touch on what you meant by it. If I go off on the wrong tangent, I hope you'll bear with me, and hopefully I'll get to what you're asking. I apologize if I do go off track. Do you mean to ask why many humans feel to have an internal spirit, or act as though external spirits exist? You have to remember that life was somewhat tough for early humans. We were at the mercy of natural events like famine, plague, drought, and so on. Mankind would anthropomorphize these fears into abstract beings who held power over their lives, and we'd attempt to bribe them. We will spill this blood, destroy this food, or kill this virgin for you if you'll kindly refrain from killing too many of us. I have to admit, this understanding comes from the history of the devil and the idea of evil, which, I'll confess, is a bit on the older side and is colored by the author's Christianity. If anybody has any more recent anthropologist thoughts on this topic, I'd love to be informed. As for us having a spirit, I again have to start with a clarification. There are atheists out there who believe we have a spirit, or a soul, a non-corporeal identity that drives who we are. They just don't believe in a creator deity. There is no evidence of any internal spirit, so I don't believe it, but there are atheists out there who do. Now, as for a belief in spirits that make up our personality, I think it comes from our survival instincts. Our ancestors who cared about not dying had a better chance to survive than the ones that didn't care, which got passed on, resulting in a desire for our lives not to end. This would lead into a desire for existence after our death, meaning there would need to be more to us than just our physical bodies.
Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter.
No, you can never get enough Star Wars. Additionally, we like to think of our thoughts and psyche as more than just chemical reactions in the brain, so many people want a sense of self outside of just biochemistry, because our thoughts, simply being chemical processes, makes them seem less special.
5. Where did consciousness come from?
Consciousness is another evolved characteristic from survival instincts. As our ancestors would perceive the world around them, they would separate it into me and not me, with the me being one of the things that needs to be protected and survive. Being aware we are individual beings is an early step in developing consciousness. And it's not just found in humans. Animals are conscious of themselves in relation to others. The mirror self-recognition test has been used on many different animals, from close relatives of ours like other primates to the modern dinosaur, or, as they're known, birds. The basic premise is this. An animal is marked on their body in some place they can't normally see. They're then shown a mirror. The animal will then attempt to remove the dot from themselves, not the reflection, showing that they're conscious of themselves as an entity that is being reflected, not seeing a different animal in front of them.
6. How do you explain what some have called our sixth sense?
The so-called sixth sense, or extrasensory perception, is the claim of, basically, psychic powers. Since no evidence has been presented to me of such powers, I have no reason to accept they exist. You need to show that a phenomenon exists before you can start looking for an explanation for it. Now, what has been claimed as psychic powers often boils down to people being very situationally aware and good at reading people. This may even happen on a subconscious level. Our senses take in a vast amount of data, more than we can consciously process, so much of it is processed by our subconscious. Some people are just so naturally good at it that they can read other people through body language, facial tics, or numerous other things without understanding why they pick up what they do. This is why that last scene in Rogue One with the digital Carrie Fisher seemed off to so many people, but they couldn't understand why.
What is it they've sent us?
Hope.
Never! She didn't have the visual cues that we're accustomed to seeing, but the digital artists were not able to consciously notice or recreate them when animating her. As a side note, neurobiologists postulate that we do have more than just the standard 5 senses. The first 4, sight, smell, hearing, and taste, are well known. The 5th, touch, can be considered to be made up of the somatic senses, like receptors for pain, pressure, and heat. But there are also the interoceptive senses, balance, organic sense, which lets you know when your body feels hunger or thirst, and proprioception, which is basically the body's knowledge of the location of its parts. I have no senses telling me where it is right now, but here's my nose.
7. How did the Earth overcome what MIT and Stanford physicists call statistically miraculous odds to have habitable conditions?
It didn't overcome the odds as much as play them, and let the resulting winner build on them. Due to the vast size of the universe with an astronomical number of stars out there, and the almost uncountable number of planets, the fact that at least one planet having habitable conditions is not surprising. And since life could only evolve on a planet that has habitable conditions, it's not surprising either that we evolved on a planet that has habitable conditions. Remember that while the odds of the correct conditions for life might be low, that's counterbalanced when there's a large number of planets out there, and our universe is incredibly large. Well, aren't you going to play the clip? guess you got a point there this time. Just find some other classic British comedy talking about the size of the universe.
Our galaxy itself contains 100 billion stars. It's 100,000 light years side to side. And our galaxy is only one of millions of billions in this amazing and expanding universe.
8. Why does humanity cherish humility and honesty over pride and deceit?
Yes, all humans cherish humility and honesty over pride and deceit. Look, humans are social creatures. Communities that work together, whose members do not see themselves as more important to the overall group, assist one another, and put the group needs over their own, thrived over communities where everybody only cared about themselves. Being fair with others led to better deals and trade-offs for long-term gains. This is another result of natural selection, where the ability to work together in a fair and honest way and care about others will be bred into the species. But, as always, there are outliers to general claims, especially in complex beings like humans.
9. Why do almost all feel compelled to do what's right by helping neighbors? Why is there a norm of reciprocity?
This goes back to the last question. It's because we're a social species. We do better when working together, and that has resulted in evolution fostering a push towards helping those we have a connection with. And being fair when dealing with others strengthened a community, leading to the, as you put it, norm of reciprocity. That has been bred into us so that, in general, people work together and support one another. Yes, occasionally there will be those who don't care about being honest or helping others. The human brain is a vastly complex organ, and they don't come out as cookie-cutter copies every time. So blind trust is not always a good thing either.
10. What is our greater purpose?
Who says we have one? As far as I can tell, the universe has not given me a greater purpose, which means that I can decide for myself what my purpose can be. And so my purpose is to be the best father, husband, and friend possible.
And 11. Why is there evil in the world?
Now, that depends on what you consider evil. Good and evil are subjective terms. There are no molecules of right or wrong out there. I consider letting people live their lives, regardless of how they look, who they love, or how they identify, as a moral good, while others may consider not following biblical commands to be on the evil side of things. But why do bad or evil things occur? Because sometimes people just don't care about others, or natural events that harm others just happen.
The philosopher Didactylus has suggested an alternative hypothesis. Things just happen, what the hell?
That's why we need a system of government to help assure that everybody gets treated fairly, and we need to support those who are harmed both by others and natural events.
Thank you very much. This is ChristianApologist.com. Goodbye.
There we go, another set of questions answered. As always, if you come across anything else like this, please send it my way.
Remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up in space, 'cause there's bugger all down here on Earth.